Hi, this is In Conversation. I'm Dave Webb. I have with me today Howard Solomon, Assistant Editor of Network World Canada. Howard, as a result of a lawsuit from Public Mobile, a federal court has overturned Cabinet's decision to overturn the CRTC decision and allow Wind Mobile to operate in Canada, despite a complex structure that seems to skirt some foreign ownership rules. What does that mean?
Well, it means some uncertainty for Wind Mobile and its parent, Global Live Wireless. What happened, let me take you back a little bit. Wind is one of the new startups. In order to get financing, it went looking across Canada for Canadians. It found virtually no appetite, but an Egyptian telecom company called Orascom, which has holdings around the world, was willing to invest a significant amount of money backing Global Live Wind. The Investment Canada, Industry Canada, said that it met the rules. The ownership structure met the rules, despite the fact that Orascom has sunk virtually all of the financing of Global Live Wind. It said that it met the Canadian control regulations. The federal regulator, the CRTC, said it didn't. In December of 2009, the Cabinet overturned the CRTC. Wind went ahead. It's been a terrific success. But a competitor, a fellow upstart, Public Mobile, objected to the Cabinet decision because it wanted to have the same kind of access to financing and to be able to push the envelope the way Wind has. The Cabinet decision said that its approval of the Global Live Wind structure was only for Wind. No other company could follow that.
Well, no other company was trying to.
Well, what the federal court said was two things. One was the federal government can't do that. The federal government can't restrict a company getting financing that way. And so now one of the problems is what happens, what's the next step for Global Live and Wind?
What is next for Wind? There's been speculation they could merge or buy another wireless upstart and that way dilute the Orascom ownership. That realistic?
That's a possibility, and of course that would raise the Canadian ownership. I was just talking to Tony Lacavera, the chairman of Wind, and he said because of this particular decision, he doesn't think that it's clarified things enough to give any to put any great pressure for a company to come to Wind or for Wind to come to another company. So that's one option. For Wind to do that, of course, it means it takes control over its destiny. One problem is that it isn't quite clear just exactly what threshold in terms of financing Wind has to meet, how much Canadian financing it would have to have. The other possibility is the federal government changes the foreign ownership restrictions.
Retroactively?
I'm not sure that they could do it retroactively, but they could change the foreign ownership restrictions in the Telecommunications Act, and the government wants to do that. They've already announced three choices. They want industry and public debate on that. However, the government has also realized suddenly there's a future spectrum auction coming up. If we can change the rules so that more foreign investors would be interested in investing in Canadian companies. That would help current Canadian companies get money so they could afford to play in that upcoming auction. So one of the things they have to first think of is, what level of foreign ownership do they want in the Canadian wireless industry for that auction? Then they'll go back and think of, how do we want to tailor the Telecommunications Act? So this is stretching out the government's timetable. Meanwhile, the federal court has come along with this decision, and suddenly, in some ways, the gun is to the head of the government. One way the government can put things off is by appealing.
Okay, so the timeline as I see it is the CRTC turns down Wind Mobile's application. The industry minister overturns the CRTC decision. The federal court overturns cabinet's decision. Regardless of how this plays out, there's going to be lawsuits left, right, and center.
I don't think that this is going to carry on much past the summer. The government can appeal to the federal appeal court, or the Supreme Court, and it will take some time to assemble documents. The other alternative, of course, is that Wind somehow manages to get more Canadian equity and probably would have to go back to the CRTC to say, well, now are you satisfied? It depends. Certainly an appeal puts things on hold.
At the moment, it's a 45-day stay?
At the moment, it's a 45-day stay. That stay to give Wind and the government time to appeal the decision. As soon as they appeal, they file an official appeal. That extends it. So we'll know soon enough, first of all, whether there's going to be an appeal, and then the appeal certainly holds things up for 6 months. And then after that, we're going to have to wait and see. It certainly becomes messy if it goes before the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court says, you know what, we don't have to hear this. The federal court was right. There's really no grounds for us to hear it. That puts Wind in a very sticky position.
Mm-hmm. With the amount of money invested in the network.
Yes.
On the presumption
Yes.
that the Minister of Industry could overturn the CRTC.
And there's another little wrinkle in this as well. Orascom is funding most of the build-out of Wind's network. Wind wants to keep building its network across the country. Plus, in that upcoming spectrum auction, it wants to have hundreds of millions of dollars to buy more spectrum. Orascom is in the middle of being bought by a European company called VimpelCom, which is, has a huge operation in Russia. One of VimpelCom's major shareholders is a Norwegian company called Telenor. Telenor is fighting that merger, saying it's not good for shareholders. This week it filed a request for an injunction preventing a shareholders meeting of VimpelCom next month to try to stop the deal. So that puts Wind financing
a little further down the priority list?
A little further down the priority list. I asked Tony Lacavera about that, and he said, if VimpelCom does take over Orascom, that's good for us. If it doesn't, our financing situation continues. Orascom will continue to support us. We'll see what happens.
Thank you very much, Howard.